Hey guys, so before the actual video begins, I want to go over two things. First thing is that there are a few keyboard shortcuts that I neglected to mention in the actual video, and I want to introduce them here because while they're not directly related to page navigation, they're pretty useful, and they're going to be useful if you follow along with this video. So first one is Alt-D. That's going to take you up to this address bar. Next one is Control-K. That'll take you to the search bar. If for whatever reason you're up here in either the address bar, the search bar, or anywhere in the toolbar, you can hit F6 or Fn F6 depending on how your computer handles the function key, and that will take you back down to the page. Next thing is Control-T to open a tab, Control-W to close a tab, Control-Shift-Tab to move backward to the previous tab, and then Control-Tab to move forward to the next tab. If you want to use history navigation, so like you want to move forward a page or back a page, let's say we open this link and we want to go back, you just hit Alt-Left to move to the previous page, and then you hit Alt-Right if you want to go back to the next page. You can also hit Control-R to refresh the page. You can hit Control-N to create a new window, and then you can hit Control-Shift-W to close a window. Last thing I want to mention is that I'm using Wikipedia to show the keyboard functions in Firefox, but by default in Wikipedia, if you hover over a link, it'll show you a little blurb of text, and that can get in the way when we're using the keyboard to navigate, because unlike with a mouse, it actually does not go away as easily if you just, move the focus off the link. So if you want to follow along using a Wikipedia article and you want to disable that feature just so it's a bit easier to navigate, you can do it by just hovering over a link, moving to this gear icon, then selecting or deselecting page previews, and then hitting save, then done. I know it's a bit ironic we're using a mouse in the video where we're supposed to be using a keyboard, but that's kind of the easiest way to do it. And then if you want to re-enable it, you can just come down here, hit edit preview settings, and then check this back and then save. Today I'm going to do a video showing you how to navigate a page in Firefox using just the keyboard. So let's start with the arrow keys. Arrow keys do just what you'd expect them to do. So down goes down, up goes up, left goes left, right goes right. You might notice though that it's kind of scrolling up and down by small increments. Same would be happening if you move left and right. There's nothing we can do horizontally, but if we want to scroll down vertically with kind of larger strides, we can use spacebar. So spacebar will scroll down, shift spacebar will scroll up, and as you can see, they move up and down a whole screen, not just in small increments. If you want to go all the way to the bottom of the page, you can use Control down, and if you want to go to the top, you can use Control up. So that's kind of the extent of this sort of viewport navigation, which essentially is scrolling without using a mouse. So now we know how to scroll the page. With the keyboard shortcuts we've learned so far, we can actually read this entire page, which is really good. But so far we can't really interact with anything. And what I mean by that is that normally if I were to read a page like this, I wouldn't usually just want to read it. I'd want to maybe click a link or click a button, do a search up here. And with the shortcuts we've learned so far, we're not really able to do any of that. Fortunately, we can do all that with the keyboard just like we can with the mouse. All we have to do is kind of break it down into a two-step process. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to want to focus on the element. And that's the equivalent of putting the mouse over an element. Second thing we're going to want to do is actually interact with the element. So that's the equivalent of a mouse click. So putting focus on an element, with that we have a few options we can use, but the first one I'm going to introduce is tab and shift tab. So if you hit tab it's going to actually cycle through every interactive element on the page. So that's going to be links, buttons, it's going to be like drop-down menus, checkboxes, things like that. And you can see that when it's cycling, it's putting the focus on the elements through which it's cycling. And you can hit Shift Tab to do the opposite, to go in the opposite direction. So right now the focus is on this little button right here. We can hit space to interact with that button. And then we can hit Tab again to go to this neighborhoods and areas of link. And to interact with the link, we're actually going to hit Enter. And then we're brought to the neighborhoods and areas section. So now that we've gone over a little bit about how to move the focus and how to interact with elements on the page, let's dive a little bit more deeply into interacting with links specifically. So we know that once we put the focus on a link, we can visit it with Enter. But we also have a few more options. So we can open the link in a new window by hitting Shift Enter. We can also open the link in a new tab by using Control Enter. And we can open the link in a new tab and then immediately visit that tab all in one action by hitting Control Shift Enter. And those last two that deal with opening a link in a new tab, they can actually be switched. So you can go to About Preferences and you'll see an option down here that says when you open a link, image, or media in a new tab, switch to it immediately. If you select that option and you go back, you'll see that now those last two are switched. So if we were to open the link with Control Enter now, it would switch to the new tab immediately. If we were to do Control Shift Enter, it would just open the new tab without taking us to the new tab. Another way we can interact with things on the page is using the context menu. The context menu is just a menu that shows up and it gives you a list of options, list of things you can do to different elements on the page. Another way to describe it is that it's just right click, right? So if we navigate to a link, we can use Shift F10 or Shift function key F10 depending on how your computer handles the function key, and it'll open up that context menu. Again, it's just the exact same thing that happens when you use right click. And you'll notice that we have a lot of options here and we can navigate them using the up and down arrow keys, but that also there are some letters that are underlined. And what those underlined letters signify are that for those options, you don't need to navigate up and down and then just hit Enter to select those options. You can actually just select them by pressing the letter on the keyboard associated with that letter. So if I want to open this link in a new tab, for example, I don't have to scroll to a new tab. I can just hit the T button because that T is underlined in the Open a New Tab option. You can also use the context menu for other elements. So for example, if we were to just not select anything, and we'll go over how to do that with the keyboard when we get to caret mode, caret browsing. But if nothing were selected, we could still hit Shift F10 and now we get a context menu over here, and it gives us options that aren't specific to any link or any element. It's just a list of options we have to do things on the page. We can also use the context menu on search bars and text input objects, and I'm sure there are other things, with which you can use the context menu, but just know that it's there and you can activate it with Shift F10 or Shift function key F10 depending on how your computer handles that function key. So now we know that when it comes to actually clicking things on the page, that focus interact combo, that's going to be the way to go. And while the interact part is pretty straightforward, it's either enter or space, we have a lot of options when it comes to deciding how we want to navigate the page and move the focus between elements on the page. So we've already seen how to move the focus using tab. Now let's move on to moving the focus using the caret. The caret, it's like a two-dimensional tab, or like a kind of mouse pointer for the keyboard. So to enable it, you hit either F7 or F7 depending on how your computer handles the function key, and you'll see it pop up right here in this neighborhood and areas header, since we clicked the neighborhood and areas link. And you'll see that we can move left and right or up and down using the arrow keys. And when the caret moves over a link, all of a sudden that link comes into focus. Now, it doesn't work with other elements as far as I know. I don't think you can move a caret over a button or an input field and it'll have it select it. For that, you would use tab. But for links, this is a really cool way to navigate because, like I said, it lets you move left, right, up, down, and so it gives you a lot of flexibility. You can also move word by word. So you can hit Control right to move one word to the right. You can hit Control left to move one word to the left. You can use Control up to move to the beginning of the line. You can use Control down to move to the end of the line or the rightmost part of that line. If we want to move to the beginning of the page with the caret, we can use Control Home. If we want to move to the end of the page with the caret, we can use Control End. So now we're at the bottom of the page. I want to go back to our neighborhoods and areas section. And I can do that by going to the top with Control Home and then using tab to navigate through the elements until we get to the table of contents, and I can use the arrow keys to go to the neighborhoods and areas link. I can hit enter on that, and voila, there we are at the neighborhoods and areas section. But I actually want to try using a different method because this table of contents section, while useful, won't be available on every page, right? It's a feature that's unique to Wikipedia. So let's go back to the top and kind of think about a way that we can navigate down to the bottom of this page. We could use caret navigation. We could bring the caret down here and we could just keep holding down, holding the down arrow, but that's already taken a while. I don't want to do it. We can also try using tab and tabbing through everything. Similar story, it's taken forever already. Let's skip that one. We have a third option, and this is the final navigation option. It's also the most powerful and, in my opinion, the best. It's going to be the find in page navigation. Find in page is a feature that will let you type in a phrase and then it'll find the next instance of that phrase relative to the caret. So, for example, right now the caret it's right here in this county seat link. Let's Control F to open find in page, and we're gonna search for the word city. So even though there's this word city up here, if we type city into the page, into the find in page dialog, it's actually going to highlight the instance of city right here because this is the first instance that comes after the caret. If we want to go to the previous instance, the instance that came right before where the caret was, we can use Control Shift G. If we want to go forward to the next instance, we can use Control G, and as we go, as we keep hitting Control G, it'll keep selecting the next instance, and then the next instance, and then the instance after that. As we continue hitting Shift, Control, Shift G, it'll do the opposite. Previous instance, blah, blah, blah. So that's pretty cool, but how does it help us in navigation? Well, for one, we remember that the title of the section at which we were looking is neighborhoods and areas. So if we want to go to that section, we can actually just type neighborhoods, and there we go. We don't even have to finish the word. It finds it right off the bat because it's the first instance of neighborhood after that, after the caret. So now we're here, and we can scroll down, scroll up. Let's hit escape first to escape the find in page dialog. So we can scroll up and scroll down, but you'll notice that it selected this little area that matched our search, and if we hit any of the arrow keys, the caret will appear right by that search. So if we hit right, it'll appear after it. If we would have hit left, it would have appeared right before it. And so it actually brings the caret with it wherever it goes. That's super useful because if we want to find a link, for example, let's say we go down here and we go to this shopping section and we read this Thruway Center section. Other notable shopping areas exist in the city, including Thruway Center, the city's first shopping center. Oh, dang, that's the city's first shopping center? I want to learn more about that. Well, we're down here, but the caret is still up there. So using the arrow keys, it'll actually just bring us back up here. But we remember that in that section, there were the words including Thruway Shopping Center. There we go. So we were able to find it. We were able to go to that specific part of the page and bring the caret there so that we could actually click this link just by using that find in page function. So one of the other cool things about find in page is that it lets us navigate the page independent of the page's structure. So you may have noticed some things like this as this video has been going on, but if we go up here, it's gone now, but if we go to this search bar, it actually keeps that suggestion box in the search despite the fact that we're not in the search box. And that becomes kind of an eyesore. It, can make it difficult to read things like, what does this say? What does the text below it say? And one way we can get rid of it is by going to this, going back, and then hitting escape, and then going backward. But then if we go forward again using tab, okay, well, same thing happens, right? So what we can do is Control F and then just search Winston, and we're brought to, all of a sudden the caret skips that whole section, so we don't even have to deal with it, and we can get to the article. Another thing you might have noticed is that if I do tab, and I continue, you might expect that it would take me to the article, but it doesn't. It takes me down here to the sidebar and keeps me traversing through here because the page is set up such that this is actually this element actually comes before the article, even though it doesn't look like it. So, I don't want to deal with that either. So what I can do is, of course, the same thing, right? I can just search Winston-Salem and I'm brought to that section. Let's say Winston-Salem is a city. There we go. We're in the article. We're in the article. So if we enable this find in page feature one more time, we'll see that there are 4 options next to that input box. And those options just let us control kind of how the find works. So if we enable highlight all, what it'll do is highlight every single match on the page when we do a search. So we can see that the focused match is highlighted in green, but all the others are highlighted as well. They're just highlighted in pink. Match case does the thing that it sounds like it does, which is makes the matches case sensitive. So you know, we can search for the word north, and we'll see down here that there are 124 matches. But if we do match case, it'll only match the norths that are not capitalized, since our query isn't capitalized, and if we capitalize that, it'll only match the norths that are capitalized. Whole words, what that does is it will only match whole words like it says. So if we start searching nor, nothing pops up, but if we finish the word, type north, okay, well now stuff is popping up. And it works with phrases too, so if we put a space and we type North Sea, all of a sudden nothing matches, but if we finish it, type North Carolina, then we start getting matches. Match Diacritics is a pretty cool feature. In order to demonstrate it, I'm going to actually go to the Spanish version of this page real quick, and the reason for that is that diacritics, I didn't know this, but a diacritic is like, it's like an accent mark is a diacritic, so it's something added to kind of a base letter. So if we were to, let's get this A here. So this A has a stress mark on it. If we were to search normally if we were to search normally without match diacritics on, an A without the stress line on it would match this. But if we were to enable match diacritics, all of a sudden it's not going to match. It's going to skip over that A with a stress mark. And same deal if we search for the A with the stress mark. So right now the A with the stress mark is matching every A regardless of whether it has a stress on it. If we enable match diacritics, it's only going to match A's with that mark on top of it. So that can be useful for if you have, you know, letters that have diacritics on them, but it can also be useful if you have things like quotation marks. Because quotation marks will actually kind of follow a similar rule here. So normally if I were to search for this opening quotation mark, you can see it's not a neutral one, it's an opening one. It would match every quotation mark in here, every double quotation mark in here, whether it's an open mark, a closed mark, a neutral mark. But if we enable match diacritics, it's only going to find one match, and that's the opening quotation mark on this little section right here. So those are the 4 options we have available to us with Find in Page Navigation. Highlight All can be activated or toggled with Alt-A. Match Case can be toggled with Alt-C. Match Diacritics can be toggled with Alt-I. And Whole Words can be toggled with Alt-W. And before we wrap up with Find in Page Navigation, I want to just go over a couple more really useful features super quickly. So the first one is going to be Quick Find. It's just like Find in Page Navigation with 2 differences. So it's not going to have these 4 options next to it, and it's going to disappear as soon as we leave it idle for 5 seconds. So you hit slash to enable Quick Find, and we'll type city again. So all the same features apply. You can use Control G to go forward, Control Shift G to go backward. You can hit escape to close it, and it'll move the caret with it, Only difference is you can't use those, you can't enable and disable those options, and it disappears after a few seconds of inactivity. You can also use something called link. It's called quick find links only, but we'll just call it like link search. So with link search, it's the exact same thing, or we'll call it link find. With link find, it's the exact same thing as quick find. Only difference is that link search, as it suggests, will only match links. So now if we search city, it's only matching the links. It's not matching any of the text on the screen that says city but isn't a link. Also, both of these will adopt the settings that the regular find has. So if we enable match case on find and page, even though we can't see those settings on quick find and link find, they'll still apply to the search. So you can see here, now it says case sensitive in quick find, and it'll say case sensitive in link find. And when we go to search for, let's say, capital city, quick find will only match uppercase, or capitalized versions of city, and link find, same thing. It'll only match links that have a capitalized version of city in them. So we've seen a lot about how to interact with links on the page. Now let's go over how to interact with other interactive objects, the ones that aren't links. So we have a page here that I made, and we're just gonna try first to interact with these objects using the caret. So with a link, we would go in and move the link into the object, but as you can see, the caret is just skipping every object. So with these types of objects, we're actually going to have to use tab to select them. So hit tab and it'll select the first object after the caret. You hit shift tab, it'll select the first object before the caret. And once you do that, you'll gain focus, and then we'll see kind of another kind of quirk with some of these objects. With this drop-down menu, even though it has focus, if I hit enter, it won't do anything. And that's because I need to hit space to actually open that drop-down menu, and then I use the arrow keys to navigate. But then, if I hit space to select my option, it doesn't do anything. And that's because I need to hit enter to actually select the option. So that goes to show how these interactive elements, they're all a bit different, and they all have different rules, but they're simple enough to where you can kind of figure them out. They're relatively intuitive. So we can go over to this checkbox. Similar situation, hitting enter doesn't check the checkbox. Hitting space will check that checkbox. We go down here and we can use space to choose an option, or we can use space to select an option. We use the arrow keys to choose between our different options. We can also use the arrow keys in these drop-down menus to select an option. So you can use up and down to kind of navigate through your options there. You can also use left and right. Buttons are a unique situation because you can actually interact with them using the space bar or the enter key. Both of them work. So we can demonstrate that by hitting space, okay, and then we'll hit enter, same result. Right, we can go to the submit button, which is actually going to submit the whole form, and okay, we hit space, and when we hit enter, same deal. Now if you're in a form, hitting enter in most places actually will submit the form, so be wary of that, because you don't want to submit the form until you're done actually filling out everything. But that's something of which to be aware. So I you're probably going to want to stick to space most of the time when dealing with these types of elements. Another thing about which we can talk is the find function and how it works with buttons. So if we use the find function to go to, we see Minneapolis is up there. So if we type Minneapolis, it's not gonna select this drop down menu, but if we type, you know, availability, the caret actually will go to that button. But if we hit space, nothing's gonna happen. We enter, nothing's gonna happen. This button actually isn't part of the form, so hitting enter wouldn't do anything, or it wouldn't submit the form. But the caret is still there. So what we would need to do is hit Shift Tab to actually select the button. So either way, we're gonna have to, you know, use that tab button to interact with elements like this. And like I said before, every element is going to be different. I haven't tested every single input element that you can possibly put on a web page. So, you know, I can't give it, this is not really an exhaustive list of how to navigate these elements. What it is just kind of a demonstration on how to navigate some of them. And then it kind of gives you an idea for how to, you know, hopefully it gives you a good starting point if you find an element in the future and you're wondering how to interact with it using the keyboard. So now we've gone over just about every way there is to navigate a single page in Firefox using the keyboard, at least every way of which I'm aware. So I want to talk now about some of the limitations of Firefox's keyboard navigation, and then I want to introduce reader mode finally as a way to possibly sidestep some of those limitations. So I'm gonna go to our article about Winston-Salem, North Carolina again, and I'm gonna try to do some caret navigation. So we see the caret is right here at the top, and I'm just gonna try to move it over to the right. So I hit right, okay, well, it's disappeared. And I continue to hit right, nowhere to be found. So what is it doing? Where is it? Why has it disappeared? You know, and what's happened is that it's not just gone nowhere, right? It's actually moving rightward. It's just moving rightward in this menu, and this menu is hidden. So, you know, it's moving kind of in the shadows, but it is moving. And if we continue to press right, we see that it popped up, and then it'll go through, I don't know where it is now, but it's going through some other hidden element probably, and eventually it pops up right here at the top right. Another kind of quirk that I've discovered on this page is that when I hit Control Home now, which usually takes us to the top of the page and puts the caret right there, nothing happens. So I have to actually hit left to make the caret show up. Before, sometimes I had to hit right to make it show up, but now right just, you know, puts it into the puts it further into the menu. So I think what's happening here is that when we go home, yeah, now when we hit right, it starts right here. And I don't know exactly what's going on, right? But that's kind of the point, right? Every page is different. It's going to have different kind of functionality. There's going to be, some pages are going to have JavaScript, some aren't, some are going to have kind of weird styling. You know, another thing that kind of pops up is this thing. So I disabled this feature when we were looking at the article before in the other tab, but in this tab I kept it enabled. We have this little blurb that pops up when we hover over an article, and you know, it's very useful when you're using a mouse because you can just hover over it and then read the little blurb and then be done with it, move the mouse away, and you know, you won't see it. Problem is when we're using a caret, there's a city, you know, now when we hover the caret over it, oh, the blurb shows up. Okay, it's very useful. Now let's get rid of it by moving the caret away from the link, and it doesn't go away. So I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if there's any way to really get rid of it using the arrow keys or the keyboard. You can always, you know, the county, you can always use caret navigation to navigate into the script, and then you know, then disable it. Okay, well, you know, there you go. You kind of see some of the instability happening right now. And so that just goes to show you some of the kind of problems that can happen with keyboard navigation. It can be unpredictable and it'll be inconsistent, you know, and kind of the more advanced the page at which you're looking is, the more problems will usually show up as a rule. And there's no way to fix this across the board because every site is different, but we can simplify the page itself sometimes by enabling reader view. So reader view is a feature in Firefox that's meant for web pages that center around a piece of written content, something like a blog post or an article. And what it does is it takes that article portion of the page and it turns it into a super simple web page that is easily navigable with the caret. And it's also just a less cluttered, you know, reading experience. So you can enable it by hitting Control-Alt-R for most people. For some people, I know that restarts Firefox. So you can hit Alt and then hit the letter V and then enter reader view in this menu, and that'll take you to reader view as well. And we can see here that it's done a pretty good job of turning the Wikipedia article into a super simple web page. You can see that we can navigate it just like any other web page. We can, you know, go to links, we can activate the caret, we can use the same shortcuts. You don't have to worry about, you know, the dynamic elements of the web page messing up the flow and kind of making keyboard navigation really difficult, because the flow is really straightforward. All the elements are visible. Only thing that's not visible is this kind of menu over here. So, well, these kind of menus over here, and with those I can't vouch for how easily navigable they are with the keyboard, but other than that, you're going to be able to navigate this page really easily. Reader view isn't available for every page, so if we go to our travel app, we'll see that that icon for the reader view doesn't show up. If we hit Control-Alt-R, nothing happens. If we go to the view menu up here, nothing happens. There's no option for reader view. But if you see that icon up here, it means it's available and you can try it. It's not always gonna parse the page as well as it did here. Sometimes you enable reader view and it doesn't even, you know, it doesn't even pick up the article. But it's worth a try if you're navigating a page and you're having some trouble doing it using the keyboard. And that is all. That's everything I know about page navigation in Firefox using just the keyboard. I'm going to leave a link in the description to the official list of Firefox keyboard shortcuts, so that if you're interested in learning more about page navigation using the keyboard in Firefox, or if you're just interested in using the keyboard in Firefox in general, you can check that out. Super cool list. I used it a lot in the making of this video, of course, to figure out different shortcuts. And really, I mean, page navigation, that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? There are so many different things you can use in Firefox with the keyboard. So many cool features. I mean, you could do search, you can do tab management, right? You can do your history management, things like that. All types of things with the keyboard. I'm also gonna leave the link to this article that I've used so heavily in this video. It's the Winston-Salem, North Carolina article from Wikipedia. It's licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 International License, and I'm really appreciative of it because I've been able to use it to make this video and kind of show some of the keyboard features in Firefox. Also, Winston-Salem, it's just always seemed like a really cool city to me, so there's that too. If you have any questions about page navigation using the keyboard, or just navigation using the keyboard in general in Firefox, definitely feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to answer as best I can. And with that, thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.